The fitful alternations of the rain, when the chill wind, languid as with pain, of its own heavy moisture here and there, drives through the grey and beamless atmosphere.
Hark at it! If you hear a local Derbyshireman say that, it means, look at the weather, and isn't it beautiful? In fact, it means it's pouring down. Because in the Peak District, for quite a large portion of the time, it's raining. And when it's not raining, it's drizzling and it's grey. Throughout the documentary so far, you've seen beautiful sunlit meadows and landscapes, but in fact a large portion of the time is spent with weather like this. The time now is mid-July, the plants will be thoroughly enjoying the drink they're getting. I am less so, but an interesting bit of weather lore exists around this time. For July the 15th is St Swithin's Day. St Swithin was a bishop in the cathedral down in Winchester during Anglo-Saxon times. When he became a saint, his body was buried in the actual churchyard, but soon they wanted to take the body out of the ground and to place it inside the cathedral proper. Unfortunately, this must have angered the ghost of him, for a storm blew up for 40 days and 40 nights. And it's now said that if it rains once on St Swithin's Day, then it will be 40 days of bad weather. Even with the bad weather that summer is usually bound to bring, you can still get out and see some beautiful wildflowers. Even in the rain of the Peak District summer, you can still appreciate the wide variety of wildflowers. At the moment, I'm next to the ruins of the High Peak Trail near to Cromford to see our latest flowering orchid. This stately plant is called the broad-leaved helleborine. It has a very nice smell, faintly of honey, and also its flowers are so big and the nectar is so large that many insects that go in there to feed and of course to aid pollination end up becoming drunk on the liquid, falling to the bottom of the plant, and often you can see wafts of bees rolling around the base, although of course not today when all the insects have got more sense than to be out. The broad-leaved helleborine is just one of a group of large orchids. Relatively common in the peak's ancient woodland, it is quite easy to find, such as here at the old railway track below Black Rocks. But there is one helleborine which truly gets the botanist's heart palpitating.
To find this secretive bloom, we must head for the National Nature Reserve at Cresbrookdale. Routes to it usually follow many of the ancient greenways, themselves alive with summer flowers. Passing the undulating dry stone walls, you suddenly come upon an immense gorge. This is the northern part of Cresbrookdale. Parts of the dale sides are covered in a habitat type known as retrogressive scrub, where small shrubs and sheltered screes support a number of rare plants. It is here that the dark red helleborine blooms. Normally the number and flower can be counted on one hand, and it is because of this that its locations are so closely guarded, for some unscrupulous individuals still attempt to track them down to uproot and grow in their private collections. This not only affects wild plant populations, but is also often fruitless for the collector, as these orchids have such a complex relationship with specific fungi in the soil they cannot usually survive once replanted. Unlike the broad-leaved helleborine, the dark red helleborine is a more striking plant with its blood-red petals and sturdy stem. It is now confined to a few areas of high limestone in northern England, the peaks being the southern limit of its growing range. Around the summer solstice, the petals from some of Derbyshire's most beautiful and thankfully common wildflowers are used in an ancient folk custom which attracts people from across the country: well dressing. Wooden frames are constructed and covered with clay mixed with water and salt. A design, often religious, is sketched on paper, traced onto the clay, then filled with natural materials. Not only petals, but seed, cones, stones, mosses, and each village having its own special technique. Reputedly originating in 1349 in the village of Tissington, it appears to have continued intermittently over the centuries there until the present day. Mainly for the tourist trade, it was then taken up by numerous other villages in the area during the Victorian folk revival at the end of the 19th century. This is Worm Hill's well dressing from 2015, intricately designed around the village well to remember those soldiers who gave their lives during the Great War. The original purpose of well dressing is up for conjecture. Some today believe it could date back to Roman water worship or even have pagan origins. But historically, the most popular story is that it was a rite of thanks for water purity during the Black Death. The people of Tissington believe that due to the cleanliness of their drinking waters, that most horrific of diseases was spared from their community. Dodging the rain clouds, you find that late summer is the only time of year when the moorlands blaze with colour, and there are a host of unusual blooms on the Peak District's high moors. A very rare one is the sandleek. Looking like something out of a John Wyndham novel, this is in fact a species of wild onion and has a history of being used like garlic in cooking. The plant head is made of a mixture of small, dark, onion-shaped bulbils and purple flowers projecting out on stalks at a whole variety of angles, a very unusual sight in the English countryside. This orchid may look like a common spotted orchid, but it's not. It's a much rarer plant, the heath spotted orchid. Its speckled flower markings are much more delicate than the common spotted, and its central lip is much smaller than those to its side. It grows mainly in moorland flushes, and amongst the dense reeds can often go unnoticed. The lesser butterfly orchid grows in only one location in the Peak District, on a high sphagnum bog near the village of Worslow. Its tiny pale flowers dance in the wind, and the whole plant has a much more sleek appearance when compared to its meadow relative, the greater butterfly orchid. The true moorland gems are found in the pristine little cloughs flowing down from the high peat morasses. You may often spot the more common upland plants, like the dainty heath bedstraw, or the perfect yellows of Tormentil. But to find the plants that get the botanist's hearts palpitating, you are looking for a precious and diminishing habitat. This tiny area of streamside flush is located near the mass of Moscar Moor, and amongst its acidic waters and mats of sphagnum are 3 very special plants. This is round-leaved sundew. The soil is so acidic in these flushes that there just aren't enough nutrients for most plants to survive, so the sundew has turned carnivorous. At its base are a series of red leaves covered in hair-like tendrils tipped with glistening droplets. This dew is very sticky, and when the presence of prey is detected, the tendrils curl inwards, trapping and slowly digesting the tiny insect. Bog pimpernel is a member of the primrose family, but you can barely see the relation. Its lilac pink round petals are patterned with longitudinal red veins, and the centre contains a tangled mass of filamentous stamens. This tiny bloom rarely exceeds a centimetre across. Its Latin name, Anagallis, comes from the Greek and means to delight again, a reference to the reopening of the flowers each day when the sun shines. The ivy-leaved bellflower is my favourite moorland bloom. The pale blue flowers are just 5 mm wide, with delicate elongated funnels that flare at the tip. It trails over the damp ground with its straggling stems and ivy-like leaves clinging to the surrounding moss and grasses.